Hey fellas. So, yesterday I started sorting away my revised, and started off with the white. And there's my excess white. Big stack of excess white stuff, right? And over here off to the side, there's my stack of excess green, excess red, excess black. There's a lot of extra stuff that I don't need. Honestly, the only amazing thing and all, close to amazing thing and all that was like a regrowth. Who cares, right? So, yeah, green revised. We all know what green does, what green is. There aren't any real surprises in here. We've got crumble, destroy an artifact, gain some life, fog. It's been around for ages. You know it. You love it. Giant growth. M12 is the first base set without giant growth in it. Doesn't that blow your minds? It blows my mind. Seriously. And they've replaced it with another card that's a colorless and a green for to give a creature +4/+4 till end of turn. It's like, really? Really? That what's the point of replacing giant growth with that? Someone explain it to me, please. I just don't get it. Instill Energy is an interesting one, actually. Today it's a out of character for green. Basically, it's an aura, creature enchantment, whatever you want to call it. Once a turn, you can untap an enchanted creature, and it can attack the turn that, and enchanted creature can attack the turn it comes into play. It's kind of interesting. It's kind of weird. I mean, it's a combination of something you'd expect out of like blue and red, maybe, or blue and white, but we have it in green. Go fig. I don't know. But you know, this was never even a highly played card either. I mean, I tried using it before, simply because I had creatures that had tap abilities that I wanted to use more than once. Meh. Life Lace. Remember Pure Lace from yesterday? Here's Life Lace. Does the same thing except green. The Laces were the biggest letdown rares ever in the history of the game. There is absolutely positively no rare ever printed that's been a bigger letdown than a Lace. Even one with nothing wasn't that big a letdown. Living Artifact. It's kind of funky. It's kind of a... Whenever you lose life, you put counters on the enchanted artifact equal to the amount of life you lose. During your upkeep, you may remove a counter and gain a life. So it's kind of wonky. It's kind of a way to like slowly reclaim damage you've taken. I'm not thrilled by it. It's not a great card. Lawnmower Elves, the classic. The classic. There's at least one base set that Lawnmower Elves wasn't in, because Wizard of the Coast one year decided to have people vote on what goes on a few things, on what goes into core sets, and people decided to have Birds of Paradise stay in the core set and over Lawnmower Elves. And why would you even want to make people make that decision? Really? I mean, really? That's a horrible decision to have to make. I don't get it. Scrib Sprites, something else you don't normally see in green. It's a flyer. It's an efficient flyer. It's a 1/1 flyer for green. You don't see that in green anymore. Heaven's Forbidden Fairies were originally in green. They stayed in green for a lot of years. It wasn't until Urza's Saga that fairies did a hardcore swap into blue. There was like 1 or 2 blue fairies in Homelands want to say just one. I'm not 100% certain off the top of my head. But yeah, there was also several green fairies in Homelands. Then, you know, in Mirage you had a couple of green fairies, and Tempest had no fairies that I can recall. And then Urza Saga hits, and suddenly fairies are blue. Just BAM! Like that. Just totally out of nowhere, they're blue. Totally out of nowhere. No one saw it coming. Unfortunately, no one cared about fairies as a tribe. Almost no one cared about fairies as a tribe at that point in time, so no one really cared either. I used to have a red, white, and green fairy deck that could actually, like, turn fairies sideways for, like, oodles of damage. Took people off guard. Shannon Dryads, 1/1 force block for green. It's a classic card and all, but yeah, it's not an exciting card. The closest thing to exciting on the card is that its original creature type is Nymph. Yeah, several years later, they changed its creature type to Dryad. Timberwolf. Here's another thing that you have that's actually real, overall kind of out of character for green. It's a 1/1 bander. It's a seriously casting cost, power, toughness, special abilities. It's basically a green Banalish hero. Except Timberwolves, I want to say, was an uncommon or a rare. Go fig. Wall of Woods, an 0/3 wall. Nothing splashy there. Wild Growth, you enchant a land. When that land becomes tapped, you add an additional green. We've seen all this stuff before. At least we hope we have. Aspect of Wolf. Here's a funky little card. It's a creature beefer. Creature gets a bonus to power and toughness equal to half the number of forests you control, rounded down for power and up for toughness. Several years later, they completely stopped printing Aspect of Wolf and replaced it with the far superior Blanchwood armor, which just said number of forests. Elvish Archers. This guy was a rare. He's a 2/1 First Striker. First Strike is also today out of character for green. It's amazing how much, now that I'm going over it, it's amazing how much out of character for green stuff there is in Revised. You've got making a creature untap. You've got banding. You've got First Strike. And that's kind of saucy. Grizzly Bears. Eventually went out of print, replaced with Runeclaw Bears. Because apparently somewhere in Wizards at some point in time decided we need to have less real-world animals. And to a certain degree, I can understand that. But for some reason, we've also got a freaking dearth of. I think it's the word I'm trying to think of. Yeah, we've got a horrific deluge. How's that sound? We've got a deluge of anthropomorphic animals, and I mean, seriously, I just don't know what to think of that. Anthropomorphic animals are okay, but grizzly bears aren't. I don't know. Regeneration, it's a classic. Green art on it too. Quentin Hoover. That's another thing that was while I was sorting through the cards. It was awesome on the older sets seeing like a bunch of artist names that you just don't see anymore. Like, Quentin Hoover and Anson Maddox and Susan Van Camp, Mark Poole, just a bunch of people, Regrowth, I don't know if it's still restricted in Type 1 or not. Regrowth used to be restricted. Colson of Green, sorcery. Take a card from your graveyard, put it in your hand. Okay, yeah. I thought I had 4 of them. Why am I only seeing 3? These other ones on the top of this. Life Force. Something that's also generally out of character for green. It's counter spell ability. It's double green. It's an enchantment. You pump double green to counter a black spell. You see Death Grip in black does the same thing for the same mana cost. Except it counters green spells, go fig, right? Ley Druid. Taps to untap a land. You know, it's an old card. It's an effect we've seen a lot of times over the years. Tranquility. It's nukes all enchantments. These days, I believe there is a white Tranquility. I can't remember what it's called or in what set it was in. There's also like a green instant that does the same thing as Tranquility with a lower casting cost. Go fig, right? Wall of Brambles. It's a 2/3 regenerating wall. It's okay. Nothing special. Walls were never a particularly well-liked creature type in the early days because you couldn't attack with them. Yeah, go fig, right? You can't attack with a wall? Why not? Oh well. Wall of Ice. It's an 07 wall. For 3 mana. For 3 mana, a 7 toughness is really huge. It's like, how do you get through that? Simple answer, you don't. Wanderlust. This is also an effect that's out of character in green. These days, this would be black. Deals 1 damage to enchanted creature's controller during their upkeep. Yeah, that these days that has black written all over it. At the time, it was green. Kudzu. Oh, Kudzu's a fun one. Eventually, Kudzu would see a quasi-reprint in red in, I want to say, Urza's block, I want to say. Not 100% certain, under Steam Vines. I also used to run Kudzu in my Landless deck. Basically, it's a Coulson double green enchant land. When enchanted land becomes tapped, destroy that land. The controller of that land may then place control of that land then places Kudzu on another target land. If there are no legal targets for Kudzu, Kudzu goes to the graveyard. But the thing with that, though, is that if you don't have any land and you play Kudzu on your opponent's lands, once he taps that land for mana, Kudzu then has to move to one of his other lands. Because you don't gotta need a target. It doesn't care who controls the target. Kid science, fun stuff. Lure, still in print today. Everything able to block enchanted creature must do so. Lure to this day is capable of winning games because it effectively makes every creature you control except for the enchanted creature unblockable. That's pretty boss. Another fun thing with this illustration, you can't really make it out, but you see that apple, that golden apple in the illustration? If you look on the right-hand side of it, you see this weird shape. On the right-hand, on this side, you see this weird shape right here, and you see this like dark smudge right there. If you look closely, that dark smudge, that's the front of a skull. That is like a golden apple, and that's a reflection of a skull smeared across it. Kid science, fun stuff. There have been things like that in art for a long, long time. I've seen pictures with like, I think it was like King Henry VIII, where the artist had a skull smeared on the floor. And it's such an extreme smear that if you didn't know what to look for, you wouldn't know what it was. Verduin Enchantress, Coulson double green. It's an 0/2. Whenever you cast an enchantment, draw a card. This is a prime example. Today this is put into white as I want to say it's Mesa Enchantress. I'm not 100% certain. But what's interesting is this is a classic example of way too much text for what it does. It's got 4 lines of rules text and 3 lines of flavor text. The actual rules text on it, and this is the crazy part, says, quote, "While Enchantress is in play, you may immediately draw a card from your library each time you cast an enchantment." Whereas today it would just say whenever you cast an enchantment, whenever you cast an enchantment, draw a card, or you may draw a card. Today that would be down to like one, maybe a line and a half of rules text. On there, it's a little over 3 lines of rules text. It says more than it really needs to. I don't understand why they decided to phrase certain cards the way they did at the time. I just don't know. Fungasaur. Fungasaur is a weird one. It's a 2/2 for 4 mana. Whenever it's dealt damage at the end of the any turn in which it was dealt damage, put a +1/+1 counter on it. People tried to make Fungasaur work. They really did, and it just didn't. It was not a good card. And its creature type is Fungasaur. Yeah, I don't know what to tell you about that one. At least its creature type was Fungasaur. Today it's probably like Fungus or Beast or both. I don't know. Giant Spider, it's a classic. It's been in print for ages. We all know what he does, right guys? Living Lands. All forests are 1/1 creatures. This can go either way, you know. It's a fun effect. Titania's Song, all non-creature artifacts lose all of their abilities and become artifact creatures with power toughness equal to their casting cost. What's interesting about this one, though, is that we've got it's a very blue effect, and you see a slightly better version overall in March of the Machines, which was originally in the original Mirrodin block. I want to say it was in Darksteel, don't quote me on this. March of the Machines was also reprinted in the Elspeth vs. Tezzeret dual decks, if I recall correctly. Tsunami! It's a color hoser. It's a 4-mana sorcerer that nukes all islands. Kid science fun stuff. War Mammoth. It's a 3/3 trampler. It's been out of print for a long time now. Another thing is, of course, this Trample was in base set. Trample's in base set today. No one thinks anything of it. The fun thing to keep in mind is there was a point in time when Wizards decided to stop putting cards with Trample in the base set because they thought Trample was too complicated for new players. Yeah, I'll let you try and wrap your mind around that one. On the other hand, with some of the questions I see asked on the message boards at Wizards, there are a lot of concepts that are too difficult for new players. I mean, I've seen players effectively ask what another means. It's like, really? You don't understand what another means? Tell you what, before you get any further into this game, learn your own language. Learn English. Oh boy. Ironwood Treefolk, no one was ever excited about it. It's not a great card. It's a 3/5 for 5 mana. Cockatrice. It's a 2/4 flyer. Once again, you don't see flying very often in green. Any non-wall creature blocking it is destroyed. Yeah, any non-wall creature blocking it or any creature blocked by it is destroyed. Ah, got a moth in here. Thicket Basilisk basically does the same thing as Cockatrice, but it doesn't fly for the exact same mana cost. Now, what's funky about this one is a Thicket Basilisk is actually better because it doesn't fly. Because you throw a lure on a Cockatrice and swing with it, you're just taking out flyers. You throw a lure on Basilisk, you're taking out everything. And there's our buddy Crawlworm. I'm glad he's no longer in print. Was replaced by the significantly better Yavimaya Worm. What else we got in here? Desert Twister. That's an effect you don't see in green anymore. Well, actually, now you are seeing that effect in green again. Destroy target permanent. Shazam. Gaia's Liege. His original creature type was Gaia's Liege. These days he's an avatar. When Gaia's Liege's power and toughness is equal to the number of forests you control, When Gaia's Liege attacks, his power and toughness becomes equal to the number of forces your opponent controls, and you can tap Gaia's Liege to turn target land into a forest. I believe those lands revert back to whatever they were beforehand when Gaia's Liege leaves play. He used to be a bit of a beatstick. He was actually worth a couple of bucks back in the day. These days, no, you're lucky if you can get a quarter for him. Hurricane, X green, X damage to all creatures with flying, all players. These days they've removed the all players clause for stuff like that. Usually they don't want green to have the capacity to do direct damage to players. Stream of Life, it's a life gain card. X green, target player gains X life. No one cares about it anymore. You'll note that there is, of course, a lack of Force of Nature. You don't have Force of Natures in Revised. I know I have some hanging around. It's an 8/8 trample for 2 and quadruple green with an upkeep of quadruple green. Or is it double green? I can't remember what the upkeep was off the top of my head now. But, yeah, it was an 8/8 trample. Sucker is huge. I mean, he practically defined what green did. While I'm thinking of cards that I don't have, while covering white, I forgot Veteran Bodyguard, which I didn't have. He was an obscure, well, not really obscure, but it was someone mentioned on the Wizards message boards, and I can't remember the dude's name off the top of my head to save my life. Something having to do with light. I don't know. I don't remember. I'm sorry. I apologize. But anyway, he pointed out that I didn't have any Veteran Bodyguards, and I forgot about them. And he's right. I did. It's an easy card to forget about. It was never a highly played card. If I recall, however, the text, if I recall correctly, Veteran Bodyguard basically said that if it's untapped, you may redirect to him blah blah blah. I can speak English, I really can. So long as he is untapped, you may redirect to Veteran Bodyguard all combat damage you take from unblocked creatures. Wasn't a particular. I mean, sometimes people would love to play that with a regeneration or something, But it was an interesting card. Apparently the fellow remembered it because of the art, because it showed this scarred up, muscly, middle-aged warrior dude. And he said there's been nothing like it ever since. I want to say he's probably talking about the art. As far as the actual effect, you see something similar with Jeldoran Highguard, but that's Ice Age. So anyways, yeah, that was green and revised. And I've also got the red sorted. So let's see if I can't make a quick trip through the red. We got a card that grants, an enchantment that grants Mountain Walk. We've got Chaos Lace. Boo! Chaos Lace. We've got Earthbind! Yes, that is exactly what it looks like. It's a fairy girl who's tied up to the ground. Earthbind's an enchantment. You play it on a flying creature. That creature loses flying. The turn Earthbind comes into play, deals 2 damage to that creature. Frequently, Earthbind could be used to kill small flyers. I once gave an Earthbind, I think I might have mentioned, I once gave an Earthbind away to a young lady I used to be involved with because, let's just say she had a fetish. Fire Breathing. It's a classic. It's the nickname of an ability. If Wizards could keyword it, I'm sure they would, but they're not going to because it's a mechanic you could put on creatures in other colors where it won't make any sense. Like, for example, there was a Homerid somewhere in Time Spiral that effectively had blue fire breathing. And what are you going to do? Say fire breathing, but it's powered by blue? On a blue creature? And it doesn't breathe fire? I don't know, it breathes bubbles, actually, I don't know. But, yeah, there's that. Goblin Balloon Brigade. So 1/1 for red. Pump red to give flying till end of turn. It's not bad. It's alright. Curd Ape! Oh, this card used to annoy the hell out of people. I remember I had a brother that nicknamed it Turd Ape. It's a 1/1 for red. If you control a force, it gets +1/+2. Some people are looking at it saying, wait a minute, that's exactly the same as Lone Lion. And you know what? You're right. It is. Lone Lion is a white Curd Ape. Shazam. Lightning Bolt. Oh, yeah. It's a classic. A classic. Can't go wrong with Lightning Bolt. You can't. It's a great card. There we go. Yeah, different. Mons Goblin Raiders. It's a 1/1 for red. That does nothing other than being a 1/1 creature. It's actually behind the curve these days. For a single red mono with for a 1/1 goblin, you'd expect it to have haste, or maybe it gets +1/+0 if your opponent was damaged this turn, or if you had landfall, or something. But no, none of that. None of that. It's just a 1/1. Just a vanilla 1/1 with a good tribe. That's it. And even then, back then, tribal interactions weren't all that big either. Red Elemental Blast. It's a red interrupt. Counter a blue spell or destroy a blue permanent. A target blue permanent. Hey, you know, it was frequently sideboarded in against blue, you know. It was in print for a long time. They stopped printing it probably around 5th or 6th, where they replaced it with Pyroblast from Ice Age. Why there was a need to print Pyroblast in a core set, I don't know. Maybe because it had a more flavorful name. Yeah, they replaced red and blue Elemental Blast with Pyroblast and Hydroblast. Oh well. Tunnel, destroy target wall. Can't be regenerated, who cares? No one played walls. Atog, it's a reprint from Antiquities. He's a 1/2 for a colorless and a red. You sacrifice an artifact, give him +2/+2 till end of turn. There was a lot of interesting things, people trying to figure out this card when we first saw it in Revised, because it says 0 +2/+2. Each time you use this ability, you must sacrifice one of your artifacts in play. It didn't say till end of turn, it just said +2/+2. We made all sorts of weird guesses on how it was supposed to work. Like, why is it, like, you know, it shouldn't be until end of turn, should it? I mean, you're sacrificing an artifact. Holy crap. Artifacts aren't common, you know? But, yeah. Oh well. So there's that. Dwarven Weaponsmith, colors in red for a 1/1. During your upkeep, you can tap it and sacrifice an artifact to put a +1/+1 counter on a creature. Shatter. It's classic. Colors in a red, instant, nuke an artifact. Can't, you know, especially these days when artifacts are really a big presence, much bigger presence than they were at the time. I don't know, but yeah. Fork. They don't print Fork anymore because it actually had a weird little rules technicality. It's an interrupt. Any one sorcerer instant spell just cast is duplicated. Treat Fork as an exact copy of target spell, except that Fork remains red. Caster of Fork chooses the copy's target. There's some funk on that. You can effectively turn it into a red counter spell, and that's the weird thing. Is it maintains color. That's what makes it funky. Power Surge. Beginning of each player's turn, it deals damage to them equal to the number of untapped lands they control at the beginning of the turn. Yeah. I mean, since Mana Burn isn't an issue anymore, Power Surge just plain doesn't do much anymore at all. Smoke. It's a red enchantment. Players may only untap one creature during their untap. Dwarven Warrior, 2 and a red for a 1/1 to make a creature with power 2 or less unblockable till end of turn. We have a Goblin that does the same thing today. Grey Ogre, 2 and a red for a vanilla 2/2. Whoop-de-dee, no one cares. Granite Gargoyle, something relatively hard to find in red most of the time. It's a flyer. 2 colors and a red for a 2/2 flying, and you pump red to increase its toughness. Till end of turn. And it apparently has the magical ability to just shut off my camera when it feels like it. I don't know what just happened there. Anyways, getting back to the Granite Gargoyles. The flavor text is attributed to the Underworld Cookbook by, prepare yourselves for this, guys, Asmorano Mardikadaistina Koldakar. Yes, the entire bottom, you can't really make it out, but the entire bottom line of that text right there, that's one word. That's one word. Yeah. Yeah. Mana Flare doubles the amount of mana that lands produce. Sedge Troll, it's a 2/2 that regenerates for black. And so long as you control a swamp, it has +1/+1. Stone Rain. Yep. And here's another thing you don't see very often in red. A 2/2. It regenerates. It's a within troll. 2/2 regenerates for red. Trolls got an interest. The trolls have an interesting story. For a while, trolls were trolls. They were predominantly in red. At some point, I want to say around Tempest, they decided to swap trolls into green. They started deciding that trolls should be giants, but now at some point or another they reversed that decision, decided no, trolls are trolls, giants are giants. And ogres, ogres just don't even exist anymore, I swear. We've got a 2/2 first strike ogre in M12. I think his creature type's giant, not ogre. I don't know. I have to double check. Wheel of Fortune. There's a classic. All players discard their hands and draw 7 cards. Bam. Oh, that card used to do weird things to games. That for a long time was on the Type 1 restricted list. I don't know if it still is. Usually you'd cast it when it was your last card in hand, you know. Goblin King. Calls in double red for a 2/2. His original creature type was Lord. I believe his creature type now is Goblin. His original text was all goblins in play game, mountain walking +1/+1. Well, that's not the word-for-word text. Ugh. Don't get me started on word-for-word text at this point in time. Nowadays it's all other goblins. Okay, I'm going to talk about word-for-word text. I've already mentioned a little bit. We'll talk about green with the Enchantress. This guy's word-for-word text. All goblins in play game, mountain walking +1/+1 while this card remains in play. I don't know what they were thinking when they decided to put rules text on some of these cards. I really don't. Hurlin Minotaur. This guy was at one point in time the company mascot. He's a colors and double red for a vanilla 2/3. Nothing special really, but he's, you know, if nothing else, the art is a classic. There was a point in time where every Minotaur in the game had been illustrated by Anson Maddox. I remember sometimes referring to him as the Minotaur Man. Magnetic Mountain. It's a blue hoser. Blue creatures don't untap unless they're controlled. Pays 4 colors for each blue creature they wish to untap. Orcish Artillery. It's a 1/3. You tap for 2 to target creature or player and 3 to yourself. Not itself, yourself. Yeah. Wall of Fire. It's an 0/5 with fire breathing. Go fade, right? Wall of Stone. It's a vanilla 0/8 wall. Mai Jai Jin. It's a 6/3 for red, red, red. If you attack with him, flip a coin. Call heads or tails. If you win the flip, okay, if you lose the flip, Mai Jai Jin does not attack but remains tapped. So basic. Yeah. Flash fires. Here's another color hoser for you guys. Destroy all planes. Shazam. Shazam. Hill Giant. It's a vanilla 3/3 for 3 and a red. Whoop-de-doo. No one cares. Monobarbs. Still in print. Still in print. It's a cute card. It's a fun card. It's a card that irritates everybody. Makes no one your friend. Orcish Oriflamme. Attacking creatures you control get +1/+0. Good science, fun stuff. Rock of Kerr Ridges. It's a 3/3 flyer for 4 mana. Same casting cost as Hill Giant, but it flies. Same power toughness as Hill Giant, but it flies. If I recall correctly, this guy was like a rare. He was good. He was really good. There were more flyers in red back in the day. Red used to be like the number 2 color for flyers, I think, now that I think about it. Kelvon Warlord. He's 2 colors, double red. Power and toughness equal to the number of creatures you control. Kelvon Warlord used to be he could get huge. I mean huge back in the day. He was sought after. Shatterstorm, 2 and double red, destroy all artifacts that can't be regenerated. Yeah. There's that. There's that. What else we got here? Stone Giant, 2 and double red for a 3/4. Tap creature you control gains flying till end of turn. End of turn, sacrifice that creature. And the creature can have a toughness no greater than Stone Giant's power. Earth Elemental, 3 and double red for a vanilla 4/5. Fire Elemental, 3 and double red for a vanilla 5/4. And of course, she is quite possibly the record holder for the card that most frequently comes up when people talk about what Magic card has an illustration with a hot chick in it. Yeah. Well, that, and of course, that was parodied in, I want to say Unhinged, when they printed the card Red Hot Hottie. Go fig, right? Fireball, it's in print today. It was out of print for a while. They brought it back. Oh, jeez. Fireball is one of those cards that at times became... How can I put this? It really actually does stretch the complexity level of what they want to put into a core set. It really does. X red deals X damage divided as you choose to target creatures or players. It only targets 1, but you can pay an additional 1 colorless to have it target additional 1 colorless for each additional target. And of course, the damage is divided evenly, rounded down. It's that evenly rounded down business that really, really screws people up. It does. Disintegrate, X damage target creature or player. If it's a creature, it can't be regenerated and is removed from game if it takes lethal damage. You'll note there's no Shivan Dragon in there. I don't own any revised Shivan Dragons. Sorry, fellas. And, oh. Yeah, Shivan Dragon is a 5/5/5 reading for 6 mana. I almost forgot that I have a Rock Hydra. X, red, red, it's a 0/0, comes into play with X +1/+1 counters. For each point of damage it takes, prevent that damage or remove a counter. Unless you spend red mana. For each point of damage, blah 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 blah. During your upkeep you can pay red, red, red to put more +1/+1 counters on it. so it keeps calling them heads. +1/+1 counter is equal to heads, and blah 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 blah. It's all wacky stuff. All right, the battery on this thing's getting low, and I know the video is dragging on. I've already got black sorted, but I'll save black and blue for tomorrow. All right, be good, Phyllis. Stay safe, etc., etc.